more annoying than having a fly stuck in your vehicle on a nice long road trip. Have fun moving to Kansas, you little jerk. Alright, we're back at the Trailblazer project. I want to show you something interesting with my Trailblazer. You may have heard this before, just in the background, but I'm going to turn the key on. And then you'll hear this. Got ourselves a nice clicking noise. Now, I've got the air conditioner charged and it's blowing cold air out of the vents, but the upper vents here for the rear air, they are not blowing cold. That actuator right there is what's making the noise, and that controls flap that opens up the rear vent. Just kind of opens up and lets air flow. Since that thing's making so much noise, we're going to go ahead and pull it off of the parts blazer and swap it over. In fact, I've already pulled it off. So we're going to turn the key off, unplug it, unscrew it, install this one. Okay, there are just 3 bolts that hold it in and an electrical plug. So I'm just going to undo that and swap over the new one. Okay, so there's a second actuator. This is another one that's kind of making some noise. I'm going to go ahead and swap this out with the one from the parts truck. Okay, so this actuator here is for the floor and ceiling vents. Whatever you put it on for, like floor or face and floor or just ceiling, then this actuator moves the flap and it directs the air in the right positions. This one down here is for the temperature. The coolant lines come up in here, and this actuator will turn and open flap that determines how cold or how warm the air is. So I got to get the 3 screws back in here. I had my son come out and turn the key for me and turn the dial on the temperature, and I was able to line up this actuator with the peg for the flap. And same with that, I had to kind of turn the dials to make that center white female end meet up with the male end of the flap. So now that I've swapped over this one from the parts truck, I felt of the air coming out of the ceiling and it started getting cool. So that fixed my rear air issue. So now we have cool air coming out of the front vents and the rear vents as well. So, all right, with the actuators replaced, now I gotta take the time to put the paneling all back. Alright, now I'm going to try to move over the spare tire from the parts truck over here. This right here is where you put your tire iron tool down in here and you hook up with the crank that's underneath here. You're able to lower your tire. This is awfully rusty. I'm going to douse all this in some WD-40, let it soak for a while, and I'm going to try to crank on this to see if I can get this thing to work. Hopefully this thing still works so I can get that spare tire under there. A lot of rust. I hate rust. Okay, thankfully it still works. Sure, I'm glad this thing still works, as I was going to have to unbolt all that from here and swap it over. Pretty tired today, to be truthful. I'm glad this thing is working and I don't have to mess with it. Alright, now we're going to go after the brake lights. I know I have a bulb out. We've got a 3157 light bulb I'm going to replace. What's neat about this is that thing. Usually there's 3 plugs for the 3 different bulbs, but they've got this light bar in here. It's kind of interesting. A couple more screws to get out. There's supposed to be one right there. Definitely tell that one's burnt out. It's got black all over it. Looks like that's been hot. Pop in the new bulb. Make sure the seal's back down there where it belongs. Easy as pie. If only replacing the front end was this easy. Like 2 little pegs that these go into. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is change the CV axle shaft on the passenger side front. Whenever I swapped over all the suspension over there on that side, I didn't realize that the boot was actually damaged and the grease had come out. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that right now.
Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is put some more gear oil in the front differential. Whenever I pulled the axle and the CV joint out of the good Trailblazer, you see this is what the differential looks like. There's the drain plug right there for the differential, and right here is the fill. So I'm going to take this 18mm socket, put it on there, open that up, and put some more gear oil and get that level back up. Alright, I got the socket on there. It doesn't seem like it's really wanting to be perfectly straight up and down on top of the nut there. The boot for this CV joint is really kind of in the way of my impact wrench, but we're going to go ahead and send it, see what happens. Okay, I'm going to get a bucket in case any more fluid comes out. I tried using a breaker bar one time and get that off, and I couldn't get it, so having this impact wrench certainly did help. Okay, so there's the nut. It's a rather big cap. Alright, the gear oil I'm using is 75W90, and I don't have a funnel to be able to funnel this in. I do have this vinyl tubing that I used for my self brake bleeding tool, so I'm just going to use this to load some gear oil into the differential. Okay, it's draining in. It's hard to see. This is definitely a redneck way of filling this because I don't have a funnel or anything that'll reach down in there. It's not working real well, but it is working. Alright, that may be by far the most redneck thing I've ever done. A little hillbilly ingenuity. It's not fast at all, but a little patience and I'm getting this thing filled back up. So, hey, as long as it works. Well, I guess if you don't mind making just a little bit of a mess, this bottle is pretty long. I'm able to kind of squeeze it just a little bit and then let go so that it's sucking air before I push it all the way down in there. That way nothing leaks out while I'm pushing it down in there. But sticking it in the hole from here and then squeezing the bottle seems to be working too. And then when I let go, it's going to be drawing in air, so it's not going to leak whenever I squeeze the bottle to let the air back in. I've got the level of the gear oil right at the lip of the opening for the bolt, and I lowered the jack stand and I got the truck about as level as I could. So the gear oil is right at the lip of the threads for this bolt, so that's full enough. So I'm going to go ahead and start this on and then tighten it down. Alright, so now I'm going to tackle the AC issue with my Trailblazer. I was able to put some charge in it and get the air conditioning blowing cool. I just couldn't get it to go ice cold like I was wanting it to. And I was talking to my buddy about it. He actually works for a residential heating and air conditioning company. And he offered to bring some tools and a tank of R134A and hook up to my Trailblazer and try to get it charged for me. Now he's used this on his vehicles and some other friends' vehicles too. But he normally uses this tool to work on air conditioning for houses. So I'm going to have Josh explain in his words how this machine's working.
So this is your low side temperatures right here, or low side pressure, and this would be your superheat. So we're taking the temperature, that's the temperature that it's removing. This would be based off of this pressure here, running 134A as a refrigerant. This would be what your indoor floral temperatures would be. So you want to keep that above 32 degrees. The superheat, the ideal range we're going for is 8 to 12 degrees.
I don't understand a word you just said.
So we're going to add a little bit more, see if we can drop it down. It may take it a little bit to level out after we see where it's at.
And you're going off the temperature with these things here?
Yeah. Alright, so we've got our air conditioner charged up. We're running about 10 degrees of superheat, and we're running 57.6 psi roughly, and that sets our indoor coil temperature at about 59 degrees. So the air pushing across that coil should be coming out about 60 degrees, and we should be adding between 10 and 11 degrees of superheat.
Are you sure about that?
Alright, a big thank you to Josh for helping me get the air conditioning fixed on this Trailblazer. Admittedly, I don't know a whole lot about it, so I do appreciate your expertise. And this thing's blowing ice cold air. I mean, it's like a meat locker in there, so myself and my family, we do appreciate it. Well, that pretty much does it for Project Failblazer. We were able to get the whole front end replaced, and I got some odds and ends done with it too. Finally ironed out some other issues with it. So this thing's ready to roll. We're finally ready to hit the road and travel out of state and go visit some family. I'm looking forward to some much needed rest and relaxation because this was a job. There was a ton of work to do on this thing, but I do have a lot of satisfaction knowing that I did this myself. I did have a little bit of help, borrowed some tools from my father-in-law, and appreciate that. But I also am satisfied knowing that I was able to get this done and save myself a ton of money. That parts Trailblazer was a godsend. It was such a blessing to have all those parts just readily available. Even if I needed just like a little screw or a bolt or something, it was nice just to walk over to the silver truck and just grab it off there as I needed it. I do have a few other things that I want to replace on this Trailblazer, but they're not critical. They're actually going to go on the round to it list. You know, the list that I'll get fixed whenever I get around to it. I hope you guys appreciated this series of videos for my project Failblazer. I do plan on doing one final episode where I do kind of like a recap and do like a ride along and just kind of show you how well it's driving. If there are any issues that I might come across, maybe I didn't put something in the back properly or who knows what. I'm also curious to know exactly how much the parts that I've replaced would have cost me had I replaced them brand new. So we might go over that stuff too in the next video, but that'll all be in the recap. But we're going to take some time off to go visit some family. Lord willing, this thing gets us down and back without any trouble. And as always, appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten on this project. So again, stay tuned for one final episode of the Project Failblazer. And again, as always, thanks for watching. And remember, correct punctuation is the difference between a sentence that's well written and a sentence that's well written. God bless, and we'll see you next time.